This is my review of Mob Psycho 100. Okay, so in this episode, we're introduced to a couple new characters, all of which are a little bit interesting. So the first character we're introduced is Tenga Onigawara, the bancho of Salt Middle School, which basically means he's in charge of all the delinquent kids in the school, who is kind of a badass, and case in point, the first instance we see of him is him fighting a rival gang from Black Vinegar Middle School. And then we're also introduced to Taro, who shows up almost immediately after the fight and ends it almost instantly. And Taro is established to be an incredibly strong fighter, and we'll find out later that he has a bit of a complex in that he believes he's the main character of the entire story and believes that the entire world centers around him. So meanwhile, while that plotline is happening, Mob wakes up to find Dimple in his room, and Dimple convinces him that he's changed his ways and isn't planning to take over the world or anything like that, which he totally is. But basically, Dimple's entire thing is that he wants to become God, and in order to do that, he wants to be able to find a way to make somebody in an idol position so that they can be worshipped like a god. And his current plan at the moment is to recruit Mob to be that god. So, and the rules of that are kind of going in place because throughout the day we find out that apparently a new organization sprang up from LOL called the Psycho Helmet Cult, which is trying to follow Mob, but they don't actually know who Mob is. So that's a recurring plotline throughout the series. So after finding out about Mob and his psychic powers, I believe the girl from last time, she asks Ritsu about Mob's psychic powers and where they came from, and Ritsu explains that Mob kind of always had them, and that he has no real interest in talking to her further about the matter, but he also points out that he idolizes his brother. And to tell you the truth, Ritsu is a bit of a foil to Mob. Whereas Mob was born with psychic powers and not much else going for him, Ritsu is the exact opposite. He was born, he's got everything except for psychic powers, which he wants most of all. So that's kind of a recurring plot of Ritsu's character. And because he's Mob's little brother, he believes that he'll eventually one day develop psychic powers. Meanwhile, and he eventually asks Mob about it, and Mob points out that he actually is envious of Ritsu because Ritsu has everything he would want in a person, and Mob is the other way around. Mob wants to become popular. Mob realizes that his psychic powers don't really help him with much anything else besides exorcisms, and realizes that the only way to improve himself is through hard work. Because Mob isn't the best student, and psychic powers aren't going to help him there. He isn't physically fit, and psychic powers aren't going to help him there. And the list goes on. And meanwhile, Dimple has been shadowing Mob throughout his entire day, trying to figure out his secrets. And eventually stalks him to the Body Improvement Club, where it's revealed that Tenga is trying to recruit the Body Improvement Club to help him in his fight against Black Vinegar Middle School. And the Body Improvement Club obviously turns them down, mainly because they develop their muscles, not for fighting, and they just want to develop their muscles for the sake of developing their muscles, so that they can become stronger overall, but not necessarily so they can use them to fight people. And that's kind of honorable because yeah, you can develop muscles, but you can develop muscles and you can work out, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for fighting other people. But Onigawara isn't quite done, and after seeing Mob, he formulates a plan. So, Onigawara, after realizing that Mob is a member of the Body Improvement Club and is a bit underdeveloped in that area, just formulates a plan. He creates 3 different letters. He sends one to Mob, telling him that he's a girl and wants to meet with Mob in Ankle Park, he sends another letter to the rival group telling them that he wants to challenge them at Angle Park. And obviously those two plotlines converge, and then Mob is abducted by the rival group and taken back to Black Vinegar Middle School. And then he wrote one final letter telling the Body Improvement Club that Mob has been kidnapped, and which will send the Body Improvement Club after the rival group. And it works. Mob gets kidnapped, which enables him to be bait for the Body Improvement Club, who effortlessly defeat the Black Vinegar Middle School thugs. And it's at this point where the leader of the group calls up Teru, and Teru basically kicks all of their asses. He again points out that he believes himself to be the main character of the story, and to be honest, he really isn't. Mob is, but he believes that he's the main character because he believes that the world revolves around him, as I said. And while he's talking, he defeats both the Body Improvement Club and Onigawara. And throughout the fight, it's slowly revealed that Teru has psychic powers, and only Mob ever actually picks up on the fact that he has psychic powers. And then Mob reveals himself to be an Esper to Teru. So now Teru realizes that he's not the only Esper in the world, and that there is indeed another Esper in the area. And now the two are going to fight in the next episode, kind of, sort of. I'll explain when that episode gets reviewed, but in a way, Teru is also meant to be a foil to Mob. Teru is meant to be the guy who used his psychic powers on people and got everything he ever wanted. So obviously he believes in his ideals, whereas Mob believes in his ideals that he should never use his psychic powers on any person and should never use them except for when he absolutely needs them, which is almost never. So the two ideals are going to clash, and obviously only one is going to reign supreme, and eventually one of the two is going to believe they're the right one. And obviously it's Mob, because Mob's the main character of the story. Of course he's going to wind up being right. Although how he actually defeats Teru is going to be explained in the next episode, and I'm going to cover that. But slight spoilers, Mob wins. But yeah, this episode mainly establishes another side character to the cast, Teru, and Onigawara, both of whom become allies in their own right, although the hows and whys of the specifics of that are going to be explained later in the story. But for right now, just remember these two characters because they do eventually become important. So, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. And also, if you guys want to help support the show and also want a way to show off your support of the show, then be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, and it gives you guys access to a bunch of different perks, as I said, which enable you to show off that you support the show. So thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!